So we'll start by removing the lug nuts here. As you can see, the car is already set up on jack stands. Now to loosen up this axle nut, what you want to do is look for the section where the bolt is crimped or squeezed in, and you want to pry that up. Once you do that, have someone squeeze on or press on the brake pedal, and you'll need to loosen up this axle nut. In this case, it's 1 1/4 inch, so what we'll be using is a breaker bar. This is what a breaker bar looks like. As you can see, you have a very, very long handle. If you want additional leverage, you can place a piece of pipe over the end of the handle here, and you give yourself a lot of leverage. Okay. Now the location of the front diff fluid is right in front of the automatic transmission oil pan if you have an automatic transmission. Just to give you another view, right here is your oil pan, engine oil, and look directly behind it. Look for this star. This is a T70 star type of bit. So make sure you have a T70 star removal bit, in this case a 1/2 inch drive ratchet, and go ahead and remove the bolt. Looking at the drain bolt here on the back, you have a magnetic end here to pick up any particles in the diff. And when you reinstall the bolt, take note of the washer. In this case, we have a brown washer. That tells us that this needs to be timed to 52 foot-pounds. If your washer is black, same deal, 52 foot-pounds. If your washer is silver, then it's 32 foot-pounds. Now this happens to be a 2010 Impreza, so just double check your application, because it may differ, but this can give you a pretty good general guide on the torquing sequence when you reinstall the bolt. Right back here you have your stabilizer link. You need to remove this bolt. I just want to show if this is happening in your case. You see how the threads are moving with the bolt. What you have to do is get a bit. Let me see what size it is. You need to get a 3/16 of an inch bit. You place it at the end, or on the end. Okay. And this other end is a 1/4 inch. And let me put the camera down so you guys can see this. And then once you have the stabilizer link out of the way, in this case it was pretty beat up, so I'm just going to replace it with a new one. But then right here you have the ball joint bolt. This is a 14 millimeter. Now looking at the rotor here, on the right you have a brake caliper. You have 2 bolts holding on the caliper. In this case we just need to remove the lower one. We'll slide up the caliper, remove it from the rotor, and we'll suspend it from the strut. And again, I'm going to hit this with a hammer. It just makes things a lot easier. You don't have to worry about killing your hands. Okay, so there's your bolt, like so, and we'll remove the caliper from the housing. And in this case I just ended up using 2 bungee cords to keep this really secure. Of course, remove your brake pads, which these are a little low, but we'll probably replace it since we're doing this right now. And then on the back you have 2 bolts. So let me see if I can angle this right. You have one right there, and then another one right there. And these happen to be 17 millimeter. And again, use a wrench to help you knock these bolts loose because they can be really tight. When it comes to using a hammer, use something pretty heavy. This is a 3-pound hammer. Using a carpenter's hammer will work, it just makes the job a lot harder. Get something pretty heavy. Okay, there's your bracket. Now this rotor is really solidified on here, but right on the front of the rotor you have these 2 pilot holes which accept 8mm bolts. Make sure it's a machine bolt, not a threaded. So we'll slowly drive in these 2 bolts and the rotor will hopefully easily come off the hub. And that's it. Now it's nice and loose. That's really the easiest and the fastest way to take this off. Let's just drive these out first. Okay. Now right here we have the tie rod assembly. The tie rod is attached to the hub using a castle nut and a cotter pin. So we'll remove both of those items, remove the tie rod from the hub, and then we're almost there to get the axle out of the vehicle. And sometimes they could be a little difficult to get these out. You have to be a little patient. If you can get this little end out to grab with these type of wire pliers or wire cutters, needle nose pliers, whatever you have, that's really the best thing you can do. And there you go. And we'll replace this with a brand new one. And then the castle nut right here is a 19mm or 3/4 of an inch. Now if you don't have a separator tool, you can actually rent one from your local auto parts supplier, or what you can do is leave the bolt still on, get yourself a heavy hammer again, and just give it a good whacking. I just want to quickly note, if you're taking off the castle nut and the stud inside is also moving, what you can do is just take the bottom of the tie rod and push up as hard as you can. I don't know if it really makes a difference, but this is what I do. And then get yourself an open wrench so you can see what's going on, and just go back and forth as fast as you can. And believe it or not, I sprayed a little WD-40 and this works. So just do it back and forth. You just want to loosen up all the grease and all the crud in there, and it will work. Use WD-40 PB Blaster because it makes a big help. And there you go. Now don't move the tie rod because you don't want to change the alignment on the car. Now we have an ABS line that we need to remove. You have a connection at the strut, and then right behind here there's another connection. And this is a 12mm. Okay. And then again, just follow the ABS line. It leads right here on the hub, and this is a 10mm. Okay. And this is a 19mm, and I'm using a breaker bar again to remove these. Okay, then we'll just remove axle from the hub here. Okay. Now this is where the drive shaft meets the diff, or the front diff in this case. So we need to dislodge it. We'll use a crowbar. There we go. And once you remove the drive shaft, there's a diff seal that we need to replace. And to do this, I'm just using a seal removal tool. And there it goes. So right here is our brand new Subaru diff seal. What you want to do is apply a little bit of gear oil to the back. And this is a tool made specifically to drive this seal back into the diff case. I'll include the part number if you are curious on purchasing this tool. But it's just nice to have, makes the job a little bit easier. And just go ahead and line up the old and the new part, make sure that they're the same size, which these are, and just go ahead and reinstall the new axle. And this is another special tool to protect this brand new diff gasket that we've installed. So what we're going to do is slide in the axle here. Okay, and then we take the other end and just fit it through the hub here. This could be a little hard, so just take your time. It does take patience, without a doubt, but you'll get it there. And then we'll just push it through, like so. And then, of course, the last step is getting the axle into the diff here. What I'll do is I'll place my hands on the rod and just force it in right into the diff housing. Now we place the strut bolts back on here. We'll line up the marks, and then we'll use a torque wrench to tighten these bolts down to 115 foot-pounds. And once you tighten up the lower strut bolts, just make sure your marking line marks up. Now if you want to torque these go to 60 foot-pounds. So just a little bit of brake grease. It's also a good idea to put a little bit of grease on these brake pad pins here. And then we just go ahead and reinstall our brand new stabilizer link here. Let's try the bottom first. There we go. We'll squeeze this in. Once you get to a certain point of tightening this bolt, this stud will stop moving. So that's your chance to really get it nice and tight. Now if you want to torque these, the tightening specs are 33 foot-pounds. And then as the last step, we have to put brand new diff fluid into the differential. Now this is on the passenger side of the vehicle, and if we look straight back, this is your firewall. Just look straight down, and right there is where the dipstick is located. Now the viscosity we need to use in this case is 75W-90. In your case, just check the owner's manual because it may be a little bit different, but this is pretty normal. And if you take a look, we're right below the F for the full line, so we'll add a little bit more and we'll be in good shape.